Welcome back to Man in Progress, Forging Manhood. I'm your host, Travis Murray, and today I've got a special guest, Dr. Danny. And Danny, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Travis. I appreciate all that you do. You're spreading some joy around the world, my friend. If I was going to write an autobiography, it would probably be called Pivots because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives. 30 years ago, I was a journalist covering President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. I loved my job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily, and one editor offered me the city beat for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became an educator for the noblest of reasons, Travis, for the high pay. And
Love it.
ironically, I fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. And in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything financially. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot from that experience. First of all, I learned that my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer and she stood right by me. She's a pretty incredible person. Second of all, I learned that money's not everything because you can lose money just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people anymore, Travis, because if I was somebody who saw what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize unless you know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to confess. It took a catastrophe. But the more I read my Bible, I realize I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And then fifth, I didn't want to file for bankruptcy. And my accountant said, well, you have to earn this much more money this year. And so I started speaking on the side and I hit that number right on the number. Well, the next year, Travis, he gave me a much higher number. And I hit that number right on the number. So in year three, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which eventually attracted the attention of some pretty famous people and companies who were asking me to coach them. And I have to admit, I really resisted coaching for a long time, Travis, because you need to know this about me. I am obsessive compulsive. I will not let you fail. I will be on your back, holding you accountable until you succeed. Well, now that I work primarily with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, I find that they're highly motivated. They do the work, and it's been some of the most gratifying work I've ever done in my life. So we can go down whichever rabbit hole you choose, my friend.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's a very impressive background. So um getting that down. And sometimes we do take jobs just for the higher pay. And sometimes you realize that those jobs aren't exactly where your path is meant to go. Now, Danny, you've stood in front of thousands of audiences. And after watching many rooms full of people, how do you know when your message truly lands?
Well, really, in the same thing I work with clients on, Travis, is in the first 5 minutes of your presentation, your audience is making a decision. Are they going to be present or are they going to be engaged? And so, one of the little strategies I share with people is don't film yourself, film your audience, because all the data you need comes from the audience. If you see people leaning in, if they're nodding a lot, that means what you're saying is resonating. If they're all on their phones or uh, doing something else, then that means we have some work to do.
Yeah, and after learning that leaning forward, that nodding, that being engaged, you kind of have like a playbook of how to tell and how to get the audience engaged. What does that kind of look like for you? How do you know that, what you're about to go on stage and say is going to be engaging? Like, what's the steps in writing that process?
So you have to forgive me, Travis, former school teacher. So everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so I take my clients through what we call the 5 C's process. Those 5 C's are clarity, connect, content, call to action, and close. So we'll take them one at a time. Before we put any of your speech together, we have to ask 2 clarity questions. And you'd be amazed. 95% of the people I work with cannot answer one or both of these questions in a succinct manner. Those 2 questions are who is your audience and what is the problem that you solve? My suggestion usually is you should start small and then grow your audience rather than to say, I'm going to speak for everybody. And you want to have one specific problem that you're solving. There's a great story of when Steve Jobs went back to Apple in 1997 and created the iMac. He was talking to his friend Lee Clow, who was the advertising executive who created the 1984 Super Bowl ad. And Steve wanted to promote 5 new features on the iMac. And Lee Clow, he crumbled up 5 pieces of paper. He said, catch. He threw them all at Steve, and Steve didn't catch any of them. He's like, That's a bad ad. Then he crumpled up one. He's like, catch. He threw one at Steve and Steve caught it. He's like, that's a good ad. Same thing with any presentation. You want one problem that you're trying to solve. So that's the clarity portion of your presentation. And then once we get into the presentation, we have to connect with our audience. We have to teach meaningful content that serves them. We have to have one clear call to action. And finally, we have an emotional close. So if we were to take those one at a time, when you're connecting, the very first 5 minutes of your presentation are obviously the most important because your audience is determining what they think of you. And so I always say, again, former teacher, you have to wrap. And so WRAP stands for you have to show you're relatable, you have to demonstrate your authority, and finally you have to share your purpose. So take them one at a time. Relatable. Oh, I am just like you. I've had that exact same problem, authority, and I solved that problem, purpose. And now I'm on a mission to help people just like you so you don't have to suffer the way I have suffered. If you can do that in the first 5 minutes, you're going to have a higher conversion rate of the people in your audience. And frankly, that's all I care about. I have clients that'll tell me, gosh, I got a standing ovation. I'm like, good for you. Or they'll say, man, people think I'm a good speaker. I'm like, that's wonderful. The only way I measure your effectiveness is how many people in your audience decide to take the next step with you. Now, that next step can be an unpaid next step, like subscribe to my podcast or vote for me. More typically, with the people I work with, it's a paid offer like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. The only thing I care about are our numbers. How many people in that audience are deciding to take that next step with you? And we want to increase that number with every subsequent practice of that speech. The next portion of your presentation is the content portion. This is the portion that most people spend the most time working on. It's usually the longest part of your presentation, and the research shows us it's by far the least important part of your presentation. The research shows that the bun is more important than the burger. People remember the beginning of your talk and the end of your talk. They don't remember anything you taught them, but what they do remember is, did you actually help them? And so this is fascinating to me. One of my mentors when I first started speaking was a guy by the name of Jim Trelease. And Jim, he used to speak to parents about how to read aloud to their children. And in the middle of his presentation, say, oh, I got something. This is going to save your life someday. Ever lock yourself out of your car. As long as you have your cell phone, just call your significant other. Have your significant other put the car keys next to the phone. You put your phone next to your car door. It'll unlock the car door. Travis, I've tried this from 3,000 miles away. It actually works. It doesn't work on like the newer cars like a Tesla or something, but 30 years ago, this was with a Toyota Corolla. It worked. And here's the point of that story. I've watched people come up to him after a presentation say, oh my gosh, I watched you speak a couple of years ago, Jim. You saved my life because I lost myself in a car. I tried that. I've been telling every school they should hire you as a speaker. Whoa, that has nothing to do whatsoever with his presentation. But what he demonstrated to his audience is, I'm a person that you can trust because I help you. That's all you have to do. So, and after all, whether people decide to work with you or not, you have a responsibility as a speaker. They've given you their most precious asset, their time. I think you have a responsibility to help them as much as you can. So that's the content portion of your presentation. And finally, the last two portions of your presentation are your call to action and your close. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make, besides bragging during their presentations, is they have multiple calls to action. So I was on a podcast earlier today, and the hostess, she ended the podcast. She said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. We got off the air. I said, you just asked your audience to do 3 different things. They're not going to do any of them. So again, former teacher, choices confuse and cause you to lose. I point this out to people all the time. If you look at the largest grocery store chains in America, Publix and Food Lion and Kroger and Ralph's, whatever the major chain is, none of them are number one in terms of the amount of product that they push. Number one sales volume in America is Trader Joe's. And the reason is, when you go into one of these large grocery store chains looking for ketchup, there's 28 different types of ketchup. When you go to a Trader Joe's, there's only one type. It's called ketchup. They made the decision for you. And so The thing that people have to understand, I'm working with a woman, she's a nutrition expert. Her name, by the way, I changed the names of all my clients to protect their identity. I believe in discretion. All you have to do is ask my business partner, Jimmy Hayes Nelson, who we work with. He's a former actor. He'll name drop left and right for you, but I believe in a little bit of discretion. Dr. Kathy, she was ending her presentation with the offer of her 90-day coaching program for 1997. And she stopped. I said, whoa, 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 big mistake. You have to understand there's two types of people in the audience. And I'm just going to be stereotypical and say it's usually the husband and the wife. So the husband is Joe Friday. He's the guy sitting in the audience with his arms crossed, looking at you skeptically, like, what are you trying to sell me? How much is it going to cost? Who the heck are you? How long is this going to take? And a well-crafted presentation addresses all of those questions, so he's satisfied with those answers. But Dr. Kathy was ending with Joe Friday. I said, you're ignoring Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts is the wife. She doesn't care how much it costs. She just wants to feel good. Oh my gosh. I listen to Travis's podcast because it makes me feel good. I learn all kinds of things every time. He's great. He's like my long lost brother. And so she needed to end with an emotional close. And she said, well, what should I do? I said, well, what do you want the audience to understand? She said, well, I want them to understand that they've probably tried other diets in the past, but they need, they can't do it on their own. I said, oh, you need to hire an expert story. She's like, what's that? I'm like, I'll give you an example. I'll leave you all with this. Many years ago, my wife and I, we had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, driving to the theater when we got a flat tire. And my wife said, well, I'll call AAA and get a tow truck. I looked at her and I'm like, we don't need to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire. So I got out of the car and I opened up the trunk and I got the spare tire and I got the pumper thing. And then I got the big jack thing to try and take out the nuts. And basically 27 minutes later, I had grease all over my hands. I had not fixed the flat tire. I look up. My wife is standing beside the car with her arms crossed, shaking her head like I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, she had called AAA 27 minutes earlier. And this tow truck shows up. And this 17-year-old punk kid hops out of that tow truck and proceeds to fix my flat tire in 3 minutes flat. You know, I think there are times when all of us think we can do it on our own, but if you want to save time, you want to save money, you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. And so now what I've done, Travis, is I'd end my presentation with a metaphorical story where people are now thinking to themselves, you know, I've tried lots of diets in the past. None of them worked. Dr. Kathy really knows her stuff. I should probably do this program because she'll be able to take me and guide me. That's the difference between a good presentation tells stories. A great presentation tells stories with intention. The intention is to get the audience to take that next step. So that's a very long answer to your short question.
No, I love it. It makes perfect sense because I've gone down that path in my own podcast. If I go listen to my earlier episodes, I am giving away as much information as I possibly can, and I'm not asking for anything in return except for a like, a follow, or whatever. And I thought that's a little bit too much. And so now, in my discovery of self, if you will, I've been leaning into just watch another video because to me, giving that away, giving that free learning experience away is better. And then later on, I'll ask in like the comments or something like that. If they want more information, they go into the comments, and then in there, I've got my coaching and my one-on-one coaching for men who are feeling stuck in their jobs, in their family, in their life. If you're feeling that way, I have a way that can help push you to the next level. And so that's kind of where I'm sitting at in that realm too. And I used to go in and be like, okay, I'm offering coaching. I want you to check out my YouTube, check out my TikTok. And I was like, it's too much. It's far too much. But the funny thing is that we get stuck in those loops because we think, hey, there are 5 people in this audience, and maybe that person watches TikTok. I want them to go watch my TikTok. That person watches YouTube. I want them to go watch my YouTube. And we're trying to cater to everybody in the audience. And the thing is, everyone's getting something out of it, but not everyone wants to subscribe, like, or share. They want to just watch and learn. And so, in that sense, I get what you're saying. Offer it up because, the wife might be like, you know what? I need that. I'm buying it. And the husband, he might just, like you said, just be sitting back like,
Mhm.
because I've been there. I've heard that story, that pitch, and my wife is eating it up and she's loving it and she wants everything about it. And I'm sitting back there, I'm like, this guy is making me ask more questions than I'm getting answers to. And so then I have to deliberate with her why we can't buy it right then and there. And so, and then I've been, on the opposite side of that where the speaker did give me all of the answers to my questions, and my wife was like, "All right, let's buy it." And I said, "All right, I'm in. Let's do it." And that's as simple as it goes. Like if you can give that message across, you can make it engaging, and you can learn something from it, then both parties can be happy with the outcome, even if they don't have all of their questions answered. So I love
I
that
actually
thinking.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, and they can't buy what they don't know that you don't offer. So
Right.
that's what's important about it, Travis. I mean, I see this all the time where the person gives all kinds of great information and there's no call to action. I'm like, well, how are they going to know how they can work with you? And when I work with clients that say, "Oh, I don't want to sound salesy," so here's my strategy on that. Stop selling. Just serve. You got 5 people in the audience. The more you just think about them, I love Donald Miller has a company called Story Brand, and I love something he says. He says, when you're on stage, your job is to be the guide and make your audience into the hero. You need to look at your audience like they are dying. You have the antidote. And if they don't get your antidote, they will die. That's a different mindset than saying, "Hey, I want to make some money off of all of you." No, look at all of them in the eyes and, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" Actually help them. And maybe you don't sell any of those 5, but this is what I always tell people. It drives my business partner crazy that I do so many podcasts. He's like, "Oh, only one person listens to that podcast." And I always say, "I don't care how many are listening. I just care who's listening." You have no idea the connections a person has. That one person that didn't buy your product, they might know the CEO of a company is going to buy the product for 1,000 people. So you got to look at every single person like, what can I do to help this person? Because this person might be my savior. You have no idea about that.
No, I love that, and that's exactly right because, you know, in the early stages of building a podcast like this or a YouTube channel or whatever it is you're trying to build, you don't have that many people, and so the important thing is if you get one person to watch, you want to know that you served that one person, and if you offer something at the end of that and they don't buy it, that's okay. As long as they got something from the video or from the podcast, then you can be satisfied knowing that hopefully you help them. And maybe you'll help them in bits and pieces because my podcast is a bunch of information. If you jam it all together and watch it, it'll tell you a very good story of how to build values and how to and rely on those in times when times are tough. But I don't know if anybody who wants to sit through 20 hours of podcast the audio in one setting and learn all that right away, but it does offer that for anybody who does watch or listen. And so in the end of all that, you're really just trying to serve that one person who cares enough to listen. And
Mhm.
I write reviews for products. I like to make funny reviews for restaurants I go to, places I go to, or products that I purchase. And I bought toilet paper of all things off of Amazon. And I always tell my wife there are a few things in life that you dole the money out for, and one of those things is toilet paper. And so I
That's
wrote this
right.
review, and the funny thing is I was going through my Spotify account and trying to look at the comments. I finally was able to get into that creators portion of it to see my podcast there. And there was a comment, and it was from this person. And they said, "Hey, you're the guy who wrote the review about the toilet paper on Amazon, right?" And I found your podcast from there. And I was like, you never
Wow.
know who you're going to serve.
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah.
interesting. That's great. I love that story. Well done, Trav. Well done.
So, yeah. So
I
that's,
just
you
I
never
just
know who
spoke
you're
in
going to serve.
Yeah, I mean, I just spoke in Montevideo, Uruguay. This was a woman who's been on my email list for 11 years, and I was so impressed with myself. I'm like, wow. First of all, it took her 11 years to hire me, but second of all, I was persistent enough to keep her in the loop for 11 years. Like some people are ready now, some people are ready 5 years from now or whatever. I love that though. You got me thinking. I'm like, I never thought about that. Product reviews and being able to show your personality. I mean, that's what I admire you with your podcast is a person, let's say your coaching program, $10,000. A lot of people, they're going to listen to a 30-minute podcast. They're not going to give you $10,000. But if they listen to a couple of episodes, they start to, man, Abbas, man, this guy gets me. I think he's worth the money. I mean, you're establishing a relationship. It's just like watching your favorite TV show. You start to feel like you have to watch Cheers. I didn't watch Cheers for the plot. I watched Cheers because I like the characters. And that's people do business with people they like.
Right, and that's just it, and the funny thing to that story is people also learn from people they like. It doesn't matter
Absolutely.
if you have the best story or the best teaching method of all time, you speak to somebody, and if they don't like you, they won't hear you, and
Mhm.
so the important thing is to get your message out there and get it across, and in that case of that person that you were talking about, make the offer.
Mhm.
It's not hurting your show, it's not hurting what you're doing, right? But if you're not getting any sales from it, maybe reposition that offer.
That's right.
Make it fine tune the offer. Don't take it away. And that's
Yeah, a lot
something
of
that you have to work on.
Yeah, you're right. One of the most important things I've learned as an entrepreneur, Travis, is people say, if you build it, they will come. I'm like, wrong. If they want it, then you build it. I've developed so many speeches just based on feedback where I'm like, oh, what do you need? And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I do that. I just say yes. Yeah. Yeah, I can do that. And I don't have it.
Yeah, so I mean, you went from teaching in LA all the way up into building this business. For those who are kind of in that beginning phase of kind of figuring out what they want to do in life, what would you tell them?
That hunger is a very good motivator. When I went through my financial catastrophe with the real estate fiasco, I was broke. I was at my lowest and I needed to make money because I have a family. And so I decided I'd start speaking, and nobody would pay me. And I'm like, I'll just start speaking for free. But even when I was speaking for free, no matter whatever uh, place I've ever spoken for, I always create a contract. And so in those early days, my contract would say something like, "I will waive my $5,000 an hour speaking fee." I wasn't making $5,000 an hour; I was making nothing. They didn't know that. "I will waive my fee in." 4, if you have a monthly newsletter, I want to write a column for the next year. 5, give me referrals to 2 other organizations that you think could benefit from me. I had like 10 items on the list, and I didn't know if anybody would do any of them. Well, everybody did at least one of them, and some did all 10. And so within 4 to 5 months, I already had hundreds of testimonials. I had video of me speaking. People started being able to find me. I'm working with a woman right now. Most of the people I work with are business people that want to grow their business through speaking, but I do work every now and then with professional speakers. So this woman, she wants to make $10,000 an hour as a speaker. And so the question I asked her, Travis, is, well, do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker? And she said, what do you mean? I'm like, do you have a website? No. Do you have a brochure? No. Do you have video testimonials? No. Do you have a speaking reel? No. Let me ask you a question. Do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker? And I wasn't trying to put her down. I think that's a great aspiration, but I'm like, you got to look the part. Just because you want to play starting tight end for the New England Patriots doesn't mean they're going to.
Yeah. So look the part, feel the part. And the other thing to that is when you've done all of that and you've set yourself up for success by looking the part, you feel like you look the part. You feel like you are the part. And that's kind of the thing that I like to do is get up in the morning and yeah, I work from home, but I get dressed. I put on a collared shirt, I do my hair, I try to look good because I want to feel good about what I'm doing. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I get dressed. And that's a big part that I try to teach my kids. Like, yeah, you could, you don't have school today or tomorrow. You could, put on your pajamas and just wear your pajamas all weekend. But is that going to make you feel good? Is that going to make you want to do stuff? No. You're going to think that it's bedtime and you want to go to bed. And so on that note, I like to talk about values as like a self-driving principle. And
Mhm.
so the value of getting dressed in the morning for me is integrity for myself because I want to feel good. I like that being positive about my own looks and about my own, availability for for what I'm ready to go do. And so as that operating system, Danny, what's a core value that you live?
Well, I can tell you that my number one non-negotiable is I don't work with jerks. My business partner he was so upset with me 2 weeks ago because I just fired a billionaire, and the reason I fired him is he's a jerk. I don't want to work with him. Life's too short. I'm not going to work with jerks. I don't like people that badmouth other people. That's why I have no interest in politics. You listen to Democrats and Republicans putting each other down. I'm like, why don't we start looking at ourselves as Americans? And let's accept the fact we're all different. Let's celebrate that. Uh, I think it's great that we all disagree. I think it's really bad when we are disagreeable towards one another. That's very. I actually wrote a letter to the editor of a newspaper because they said that the president and Congress were behaving like children, and my they didn't publish my letter because they're dumb. But my letter, the gist of the letter said, "That is such an insult to children, because kids get over it. Kids will get in a fight, and 10 minutes later, they're like, 'This is my best friend.' It's adults that hold grudges." And so that's kindness is a guiding value for me. It's very important to me. When my own 3 children were born, it's interesting. I'm sure you had this experience too. Like before they're born, you're like, "Oh, I want them to be a doctor or a lawyer, somebody very successful." But then they were born, and I'm like, "I want my kids to be kind. I want them to be good people. I want them to leave the world a little bit better than when they came in." If they could do that. Uh, that
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Danny. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Honestly, we probably could have talked for a few more hours. We did, however, run into a small technical issue near the end of the recording, and unfortunately, Dr. Danny Brassell's audio dropped out on us. But I didn't want to take that away from him and the value that he shared in this conversation. One of the things that Dr. Danny mentioned before we wrapped up was how much he studied great speakers. One of his favorite examples is the Academy Awards acceptance speeches. Those winners only get about 45 seconds on stage, yet the best ones manage to connect emotionally, express gratitude, and leave people remembering them. His point was that powerful communication isn't about how long you speak, it's about clarity, authenticity, and knowing the message you want people to walk away with. Dr. Danny also has something for all of you listening. He created a free guide called The Storytelling Blueprint: 5 Steps to Craft a Compelling Business Narrative. It helps you identify your core message, connect emotionally with your audience, and structure your story so it actually drives engagement and opportunity. That can be found at freestoryguide.com. Again, that is freestoryguide.com. The link to that guide will be in the description of the audio podcast and the video YouTube version of the episode. So check that out and give it a look. And in the same place there, you will find a link to my one-on-one coaching if you want help forging your own path forward. And remember, everybody, you are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are a man in progress. Keep forging. I'll see you on the next one.